Welcome to History for Tuesday, December 1st. Okay, we're going to begin by reviewing our landforms. And I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to give you the definition, and you have to tell me what landform I'm talking about. All right, first of all, I want you to tell me which one is a raised area of land. One of them, this is actually two of them, one of them is taller than the other one, one's not quite as raised. So that would be your mountains and your hills, right? Right? This one is a mountain, but it has an opening in the earth's crust from which lava escapes. That would be your volcano. Very good. All right, what is a lowland between hills or mountains? All right, so we see one here between these two mountains. Or if you consider this a hill, there's a lowland between those two hills. Okay? So what is the lowland between hills or mountains? That would be a valley. Alright? What about this flat land? Flat level area of land. That would be a plain. Very good. Alright? An area of land completely surrounded by water. That would be your island. Very good. What is a piece of land that's almost completely surrounded by water? Usually just three sides. Peninsula. Peninsula. All right. What is a natural stream of water that flows into either a lake or an ocean? And you see one in this valley here. That natural stream is a river, okay? And a large body of fresh water surrounded by land, that would be this one over here, that is a lake. Very good. What is land that is too dry or too cold to grow many plants? That's what you see here. That's desert. Very good. And a desert area with a supply of water, usually from a spring or a well, pictured right here. That's your oasis. Very good. What's an area of low, wet, soft land? Look, you see right here. That's a marsh. Very good. An area of low, wet, soft land. And then a deep, narrow pass between steep heights, like you see right here. That would be a gorge. Very good. A gorge. All right, we're going to do next is the Midwest region. So I'm going to pull down my landforms and put up the Midwest. All right. Oops. It's not going to stay unless I put another magnet. There we go. All right, so let's do the Midwest. I still haven't turned it around yet, but North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. One more time. North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. All right, now we're going to look at both the northeast and the southeast because as I've told you, not only was it on your last quiz, but it's going to be on your next quiz and it's going to be on the test. And the next quiz is going to be next week after the distance learning, and that test will be sometime towards the end of that week. And both of them will have this on it. So, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Arkansas, Florida. And let's do those one more time. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, don't forget this is also New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland, West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Arkansas. And you will need to know those for your next quiz and your next test. All right, we're going to start on page 181. We did the comprehension check, so we're going to start where it says a difficult beginning. Okay, so turn in your books. If you need to pause the video while you find your place in your book, then do that. On May 14th, 1804, the men started down the river. It was a slow trip. They had to go against the current, deal with shallow rivers, and stay away from sandbars. Sometimes the water level was so low that they had to get out and carry the boats. This was not an easy job. The men became tired and sometimes weak. They had to deal with rain, heat, cold, mosquitoes, and illness. Many men became ill along the way, but through all the hardships, only one man died. The men pressed on because their country was counting on them. And by the way, that picture would be a picture of the type of boat that they used to get up the river. Winter camp and a guide. The weather grew colder. When the Missouri River began to freeze, the boats could go no farther. The group stopped on the river near a cluster of Native American villages. They quickly built a fort out of logs. Finally, they could get some rest. While they were at this fort, they met a fur trader from Canada and his Shoshone wife, Sacagawea. Lewis and Clark knew that later in the expedition, they would need to trade for horses with the Shoshone Indians. The horses would get them across the Bitterroot Mountains where their boats could not go. When the two men asked Sacagawea and her husband to join the trip, they agreed. But when it was time to go, not just two, but three joined the expedition. Sacagawea had had a baby boy. His name was Jean-Baptiste, but his nickname was Pomp, or Pompey, which in the Shoshone language means little chief. The men loved having this little baby on the trip. Pompey was 2 months old when Lewis and Clark were ready to go again. The group, now guided by Sacagawea, headed farther west, while a smaller group headed back to President Jefferson. They took maps, reports, charts, plants, and rocks for President Jefferson to see. They also took a prairie dog, a small rodent that lives underground, and a magpie, a type of crow. People who lived in the East had never seen these animals before. Heading west. I think this is the page we're stopping on, so let's read this page and then we'll stop. Heading west. As Lewis and Clark headed west down the Missouri River, the trip was not easy. The snow had not completely melted. The rivers were not always easy to travel. Sacagawea proved to be very helpful. Her quick thinking and bravery allowed the expedition to overcome many difficult problems. Soon the group came to a waterfall. How would the boats get to the bottom of the falls without being broken to pieces? And how would they keep all the supplies safe? The men had to carry the heavy boats and supplies down the steep hill to the water below. The group reached the land of the Shoshone Indians. Sacagawea was finally able to see her people again. It had been over 5 years since she had been home. She interpreted as Lewis and Clark traded with the Shoshone for horses for the next part of their trip. Now they were ready to travel across the mountains on horseback. They buried some of their supplies along with their boats. They would come back for these items later. In the mountains, they found there were no paths. The higher they went, the colder it became. Even though they were traveling in the summertime, there was still snow. The weather was different each day. They had to deal with wind, rain, hail, and snow. But the group moved on. As they became more and more hungry, they found another tribe who traded with them for much needed food. And that's where we'll stop for the day. All right, see you tomorrow. Don't forget to read your book report book for reading.